Trump pushes senators to stick with him on border emergency. Washington. U. President Donald Trump is signaling to Republican senators he has little tolerance for dissent as they prepare to vote on terminating his national emergency declaration to build the border wall with Mexico. Trump says GOP senators are overthinking the coming vote Thursday. For the president, Trump is influencing the debate among GOP senators, especially those up for re-election in states where Trump's support and tweets can affect voter attitudes. The White House and GOP senators are trying to strike a compromise on legislation that would curb a president's power to unilaterally declare such emergencies in the future. GOP senators are hoping that if Trump endorses that bill, more Republicans would oppose the separate resolution that would block the border emergency he proclaimed last month. The House has already rebuked Trump's national emergency declaration, and if the Senate joins in, it would force the president into the first veto of his presidency. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is trying to make it harder for Republicans to avoid an embarrassing rebuke of the president. Pelosi said the House would not take up the new legislation limiting future presidential authority if it passed the Senate. Republican. Pelosi's move seemed aimed at persuading GOP senators wavering over the resolution disapproving Trump's border emergency that they would get no political protection by supporting the bill curbing future emergencies because it will never become law. If Trump's border emergency stands, he could divert $3.6 billion from military construction projects to build border barriers, even though Congress had voted to limit him to less than $1.4 billion for such construction. It has long looked like the Republican-run Senate would join the Democratic-led House in voting to block Trump. But there have been signs that opposition by a few GOP mavericks is softening. Some Republican, an administration official, said Wednesday that the White House is skeptical there will be enough votes to head off a Senate defeat and is reluctant to back limits on future declarations unless a victory on the resolution is assured. The official was not GOP senators. Mike Lee of Utah, Tillis and 3 other GOP senators have said they would vote with Democrats to support the resolution blocking Trump's border emergency enough to assure its passage, assuming all Democrats vote yes as expected. At a closed-door lunch Tuesday, Tillis suggested he could be open to backing the president, said 2 people familiar with his comments. One said Tillis, the 2 spoke on condition of anonymity to reveal private conversations. Tillis 8. Republicans control the Senate 53-47, meaning that 4 GOP defections would be enough to send the resolution blocking Trump's border emergency to the White House. The others are Senate. Congress would be highly unlikely to muster the 2/3 majorities needed to eventually override a veto. But approval of the resolution would highlight a clash in which Trump was being forced to protect his signature campaign promise by vetoing legislation sent to him by a Republican-led Senate. Congress has never, under a 1976 law, presidents have wide discretion in determining when a national emergency has occurred. Congress can. Lee's proposal says a presidential emergency would last 30 days unless Congress votes to extend it. It would apply to few. A vote on Lee's plan was expected after Congress returns from a recess later this month. The strongest chance of blocking Trump's border emergency is likely several lawsuits filed by Democratic state attorneys general, environmental groups and others. Associated Press writer Catherine Luzzi contributed to this report.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,